We have a great panel to follow right now. It's amazing that we've got Raghu and Kevin. I got to tell you that when I look at Raghu and Kevin and their personalities and background, it's the number that comes to mind is 1 billion. It's 1 billion in revenue, 1 billion in customers, 1 billion in engagement. I mean, those kind of numbers don't happen to ordinary people. So Raghu is a CEO and co-founder of FalconX.io. Raghu, yesterday you did not talk about your company at all. And I know you're being very cognizant of your panel, but today I would like for you to talk a little bit about your company, what you're doing and how you're addressing some global issues in global markets. Kevin, it's a pleasure. We haven't met. I'm so happy that you are here. I'm hoping to see you on video as well. As soon as we started to put your name out there, we were like, oh my God, Kevin Chou is going to be on this panel with Raghu. I mean, he's Rally.io. I mean, what's he doing? How's he doing it? And amazing accomplishments in the gaming industry and how that's going. And we're all very excited about hearing about your company and what you're doing and what you've reflected on 2020, what you've learned from 2020, and what does it look like for all of us and for your particular companies in 2021. I'm going to hop off. When I do come back, that means we're close to time, even though I know that some of these conversations tend to run long. So welcome. Thank you again, Raghu. Thank you, Kevin. Raghu, please talk about your history. We want to learn a little bit about your involvement with Google and how you took that company and how you helped them. I don't want to tell the story about the blank check and the atmosphere that you were involved with the CEO with Google. But if you want to bring it up, we'd love to hear that story.
Absolutely. First off, I think thanks so much for the very warm intro, guys. I'm really excited to be hosting this panel. The core focus of this panel is going to be what can we do in the crypto ecosystem today that can lay a solid foundation for moving the needle in a big way. And I'm not talking about taking the number of net new users in crypto from 80 million to 95 million users. I'm talking about taking the number of users in crypto from 90 million to 900 million. What needs to happen today? And for that conversation, I couldn't find a more inspiring personality than Kevin. Kevin is a good friend. Draw a lot of inspiration from him. He's a serial entrepreneur, and he's going to be, introducing himself. And I want to parse this conversation into 3 buckets. The first bucket is a quick round of introductions. My personal background, FalconX a little bit, Kevin, his personal background, and Rally. After that, we're going to take a deep dive into Rally. From that, we're going to abstract a little bit in terms of what does the crypto ecosystem need now. And once we lay that foundation, happy to answer any questions. We received a ton of questions from LinkedIn, 21 questions. So we're going to be taking 1 or 2 of those questions, and we'd love to basically take 1 or 2 questions from the audience as well. So without any further delay, quick introduction from my side first, and we'll turn it to Kevin. So I'm the co-founder CEO for FalconX. And before FalconX, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've been an engineer. I was doing machine learning back in the day when it was not cool. In 2007, if you graduated with a master's in machine learning, people were laughing at you because that never works, because we didn't have enough compute to basically run machine learning at scale. But I was very passionate about it. Started a few companies. Then I went to what I call the dark side to structure all my tribal knowledge that I learned in building the companies, being an engineer, to actually putting all of this in action and structuring this a little better. So I went to Harvard Business School, very fortunate to have gone there. Right after HBS, I was about to start a company, but I had a fascinating conversation, from someone at Google. At that time, Sundar Pichai, who's the CEO for Google and Alphabet, he was VP of Chrome. And I was very fortunate to have a conversation with him. A small conversation turned into a multi-hour conversation. And I was pretty sure that, I took the meeting primarily because it's Sundar. When Sundar calls, you go. And I wasn't very keen on joining Google. But after that few hours of conversation, within 24 hours, I put my own company aside and joined on Sundar's team. And was very fortunate to have worked on a product, led efforts on a product line called Chromebooks. Essentially, these are laptops powered by Chrome, the browser. In the US, they became a huge hit in schools. We went from less than 1% market share to about 63%, bigger than Apple and Microsoft, all within the span of 3 years. And during that engagement, I also met with some of the brightest engineers at Google. And oftentimes, I mean, over a beer, we asked them, I mean, tell us about what you're excited about from a technology standpoint. Blockchain repeatedly comes to be one of those technology and trends. So I fell in love with what blockchain could potentially mean. And I, as previous panelists was telling, I really believe that we are at the tip of the iceberg, right? I mean, 90 million users is fun, is good, but it's not profound yet. And we're going to see all of that in the next 2-3 years. So waiting for that. And with that context, started FalconX. I'm going to spend very little time on FalconX, and through the conversation, I'll add a little bit more detail. We are an institutional trading platform building towards a prime broker. We are one of the largest prime brokers out there, both in terms of volumes, in terms of number of customers, most metrics. And for those of you out there, who are like, what does a prime broker in crypto even mean? Simplifying that, a lot of institutions who are coming into crypto, they have questions all the way from what is crypto? How do I get exposure? How do I custody? How do I trade? How do I get credit? We take care of all of those things through FalconX and our partners. We answer those questions all the way up to, if you're trading hundreds of millions of dollars a month, how do you optimize your execution? How do you get credit? How do you basically facilitate better execution and trade cost analysis for all of that? So we take care of the entire gamut for institutions, and we've been incredibly fortunate that we're growing very fast. With that, I want to pass the mic over to Kevin.
Raghu, I haven't heard the story about Sundar. It's great to hear that. I want to hear about the blank check at some point. So my background, I started off as an M&A banker at Deutsche Bank out of undergraduate. Yeah, so I studied finance undergraduate. And then I went over to a venture capital firm called Canaan Partners. I did investing in digital media and consumer internet for 2.5 years. And then about 15 years ago, I started my first company, a gaming company called Kabam, which I founded became the founder, CEO, and ran it for 11 years. And as Raghu and Karen mentioned, grew it to $400 million a year in revenue, with our biggest game, grossing over $1 billion, through its lifetime, which was a partnership with Marvel to create the highest grossing Marvel game of all time, which is called Contest of Champions. So ran that for 11 years and grew, from a revenue standpoint, very successful. And then from a user standpoint, we had over 500 million players of our games from every single country except for North Korea and Iran. And so a lot of experience taking being at the forefront of cloud computing, be at the forefront of mobile, and kind of a new computing platform. And then I sold that company to Korea's largest public gaming company called Netmarble for $1 billion. And I took a little bit of time off, and I started an esports team. And so I kind of founded that with some sports partners, and because I've just been so excited about esports and people playing games professionally as sport and competing with other people around the world. So, and from those two things, I spent a lot of time with crypto, because some of the smartest people that I knew in the technology industry, in the gaming industry, were starting to dabble with crypto. So, the creators of CryptoKitties had a gaming background. But the thing that really got me was there was a game called Counter-Strike, which some of you might have heard of. It's a 20-year-old plus game. The game probably makes somewhere between $50 to $80 million a year. These days, it's pretty old. But what's really fascinating is that there's something called a skin trading economy. So people trade the skins that you can use in the game. In that economy, nobody knows exactly how big it is. I probably put the estimate around $300 million a year. It could be, significantly larger, actually, if you count the other black markets around it. And so what started happening was that community, that online community, which is spread all over South America, Europe, North America, some of Australia, started using Bitcoin as the settlement for CS:GO skins. So that's how I first got introduced to Bitcoin, and saying, what is this thing that people are using to settle their skin trades? And so anyway, so the gaming industry is a really fascinating one, because for 11 years I made these virtual swords, virtual platinum and gold, and then people would pay real money for that, a lot of money, to buy these virtual currencies, virtual assets. And so, of course, as I started thinking about crypto and what this new technology enabled and the new business models around it, I got incredibly excited about taking that background and how do I truly unlock the value of these digital assets for the next billion people to come into the space, which is really what we're focused on at Rally.
That's awesome, Kevin. Just building on that, right? I mean, the first time we met, Kevin, you mentioned something very fascinating. You said, I want to create a compelling use case that brings the next 100 million users into crypto. And that was a romantic vision for me, because we meet with a ton of projects and a lot of them talk about token economics and all the economic theories and game theories and all that. Yeah, all of that follows, but use case. The love towards the use case, building a use case was just fascinatingly different. Could you talk a little bit more about how we are going to bring that 100 million users that you promised me?
So there's two angles to this. The first angle is the user experience itself, and really being a product expert and having built on iOS App Store in 2013 and 14, when it was just a nightmare to build on top of it. And in Android, a couple of years later, when they enabled microtransactions or in-app purchases, it was still incredibly hard to build these platforms. The key thing in consumer, though, no matter how hard the technology is that the developer is facing, from a consumer, you have to be able to get a consumer into an internet experience in 60 seconds or less. That's just like, in the gaming industry and multiple other consumer internet, Google, famously on their homepage, measured the milliseconds of response times and so forth, right? And so, getting a very complicated game with 3D graphics that worked on the chips that were made in 2014, and getting that whole thing to work in a 60-second experience was a thing that everyone in the industry struggled with, and we all try to figure out how to speed up that process. And so the way I think about crypto is, how do I get a user who's just learning about a new crypto asset that he or she would want to earn or purchase? How do I get them into that experience in 60 seconds? And I do think that requires, in some sense, vertically integrating certain things, from account creation to wallet provisioning to fiat on-ramps, any security models and all those things. Like, how do you build that experience to have the full crypto experience, but enable a user to be in that experience in 60 seconds or less? I think that's absolutely key, maybe not for the next 10 million users, but if we're talking about 100 million users coming into crypto in the next 2 to 3 years, which I believe is very much possible, how do we do that? The experience can't be start with a 24 phrase, passcode, and then go sign up for a centralized exchange and go through a KYC process before you even know where before you even figure out how to trade. So that's one thing that I think is really important as we move from currencies and asset classes, and these assets, to consumer applications and consumer usages for again, the next 100 million. The second thing is, I think what I'll call the Web3 space is very enamored with composability, and that's fantastic. Smart contracts and the totally trustless ability to interact with those smart contracts is absolutely key for what's happening in DeFi and in kind of the next set of technologies that are happening. But the approach that we're taking with Rally that I believe is very necessary is there needs to be more traditional APIs and webhooks and other data pipelines that traditional websites can integrate crypto experiences into easily, right? So if I'm on somebody's blog, if I'm on somebody's Shopify or e-commerce site, and I want to use crypto to transact or to tip to tip or to do anything or earn it, why do I need to go to some centralized exchange, et cetera, and go through this how do we put that experience of interacting and earning crypto into as many places around the web as possible, and specifically into social, because that's where people hang out. That's the town hall for everyone, right? So those are some of the key philosophies that in building all this, it's incredibly hard from a technology standpoint. Make it work from a Web3 to be a true Web3 protocol, but still have the ability to integrate into, provide the ease of use for consumers, provide the ease of use for developers. Those are the things that I think the next generation of crypto projects are going to tackle, that open up the spigot for the next 100 million, for the next 900 million people to come into crypto.
That is fascinating. Using those first principles, right? I mean, clean UX, seamlessness, interoperability with the layer of social, the right amount of social. Using those first principles, I mean, looks like Rally used all these ingredients in very interesting ways. I want to double click a little bit on how Rally is different from other social tokens out there.
Right. So the first thing is that Rally, we have a hybrid model. So the governance token is an ERC20 token that is a totally trustless, permissionless token that you can hold in a Web3 wallet. You can take custody of it yourself. You can use Coinbase custody or whatever custody solutions in your region that you want to trust. You can use FalconX, or one-stop shop for trading and custody and credit and so forth. So that works anywhere that crypto works. And now on the other side, we create this hybrid solution that's on a side chain for both scaling. Notoriously, Ethereum doesn't scale very well from a transactional standpoint. So from a scaling standpoint, but even more importantly, in terms of creating kind of this bridge between Web 2 and Web 3. Really, we think about it as Web 3 to Web 2. So what we want to do, again, is enable creators who think about running a digital business to be able to mint and create their own coin in seconds, and for their users to be able to transact with them, whether it's to buy their jersey or sell a CD, as we're having artists now starting to do, signed autographed CDs that one of our artists is doing, or in a video gaming context, we work with a ton of esports teams. We work with a bunch of individual, top tier video game players that have fans all around the world. The average Twitch streamer partner has has viewers in over 60 countries. So the ability for a fan in any one of those countries to say, hey, I want you to play this hero next, or I want you to play that game next. Those are transactions that are happening all the time in these digital spheres and digital communities. And we make it really easy for those transactions to not have to happen in a Web3 wallet or anything else, but to be on the social media platforms that people already hang out, and to be able to transact in those places through, APIs, and then the widgets and other integrations that other developers are able to build onto Rally. So that's kind of, part of our approach is just to make it, to make crypto experiences and transactions happen everywhere, not just on the exchange, but still be compliant. And for what we call a graduated process of KYC, of security and compliance, such that if you want to buy $5, like, great, that should be a credit card swipe, and that's like very clearly, I want to buy this thing that works. I can do it on any site. And then once you're getting to $500, thousands of dollars, you go through graduated experiences of KYC and compliance. And so, tackling all of this is kind of the difficult part of pulling a project together, but that's what I'm so excited about building. That's great.
Now, you alluded to this, but I want to tease this notion of who you're building this for, in what phase, right? Because to compose a 60-second usability for a complex workflow, you need to be very precise on phase 1, who are the user base that you're targeting. So who are the users in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? Where do you see the user evolution go to?
So the first phase is working with, number one, generally all digital communities. As I said, we have some physical commerce that's starting to happen, even though that's not, it's not easy to do that, through our platform, and people are literally using memo fields to put addresses for shipping and a few other things that are starting to happen. But really what's happened, the easiest way that we think about commerce, and this goes back to the CSGO skin trading and the BitGo, or the Bitcoin settlement, is how do we help, communities that have users from multiple countries that are all kind of hang out in, whether it's a Reddit or Discord or in Twitch, those are some of where we're generally seeing just a lot of real interest and traction, in this, and then the leaders of that community. So, for example, we're just on the eve, and we announced that we've been working with these communities for quite a while. So, the Discord community called Among Us, which Among Us is what's driven Twitch to triple their viewership this year. It's this game that you play, and it's a little bit like the game Mafia, if you've ever played that in your business school class or something like that, kind of a drinking game, but it's played into video game context. And this is this server, which has 300,000 members, is going to integrate Rally tokens in a way that all of their community members use Rally in terms of trading with each other in the Discord server that they use to play this game. We have another creator who is called Fan Hots. He used to be a professional Heroes of the Storm player for Cloud9, which he's the most watched Heroes of the Storm player in the world. On any given night, he'll have 2,000 to 3,000 people watching him play. And he just streams for fun now. He's kind of retired, and there's something like 120 different champions in this game. And so his viewers want to see him play certain champions at different stages of the game evolution, et cetera. They're like, hey, play this champion. I'll pay you $5. So he's got a menu. He's got like, I'll play this champion for this much. I'll play this champion for this much. And then all these other champions, whatever, I'll a lower cost to play these things. So he's got this really interesting digital interaction where it's a way to do commerce for an esport player, again, across any number of currencies or cryptocurrencies that are able to use. And then Selah is a Christian rock band, and they used to be touring all around the country, all around the Midwest. Of course, you can't do that these days with COVID. And so a lot of musicians are looking at virtual experiences to do concerts, to do chats and do virtual events. And so Selah, they've been fascinated with crypto, and so they're starting to host virtual concerts. And they've tried Twitch, they've tried Facebook Live. They're now trying Discord, because on Discord we can say, hey, to access your concert, you have to have either paid or held a certain number of tokens in the last 30 days. And so they're able to create a really easy to use Discord channel, gate the access to the concert in a really easy, simple way. And the fans, if they want to participate, they go acquire the tokens. Again, as we talked about, 60 seconds or less, you're in, you go check out the virtual concert, you can tip them afterwards. And then after the concert, they did this thing where they signed, they autographed CDs, those physical discs still, and then they mailed them to their users that paid them a certain amount of cryptocurrency. So we're seeing a lot of really just interesting use cases of just how do we power new digital businesses with tokens that are used in a community. And I think it's we're just on the tip of the spear in terms of making cryptocurrency relevant to the next hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, hundreds of millions of people.
Perfect, Kevin. I know we're almost up against time, so let's start taking questions.
Wait.
Please go ahead, Kareem.
Kevin, it's amazing. I hope I wish we had you here yesterday, and I wish we had more people on this thing, because what's really amazing about what you do and what you said is very succinctly identifying how do we get an X number of folks or users engaged in 60 seconds or less. And I think a lot of businesses don't understand that. Secondly, is when we see what's happened over 2020 and the digitization and digitalization of everything, if nobody is paying attention to that, or if not enough businesses are paying attention to that, I think there'll be a lot of failure points moving forward. I know you're focused on tokenization and how the utility of token. It was interesting. We had a great panel yesterday in regards to learning tokens, and you're talking about social tokens now and gaming tokens, and then we've got the utility tokens, and we've got the coin tokens and the currency tokens. There's so much variety here, and I really do want us to explore that a little bit more in the future panels for sure, because this is an amazing and a fascinating area. Raghu, I mean, I got to tell you, you skated by yesterday and you skated by today. The next panel I'm interviewing you.
That's a good idea. I would listen to that panel.
Everyone who's missed your background and heritage and your success of building companies and doing amazing things in the market will learn more about you. So you've skated this one and yesterday very adequately because of your West Coast, East Coast sort of like combination. But it's not happening the next time. Next time I'm on a panel with you and we're talking. We've got a few minutes left. We've got a whole bunch of questions, but we're running out of time. So I'm going to ask you just one question each, 60 seconds or less. Start with you, Kevin. What do you see happening in 2021?
My prediction in 2021 is that Ethereum's gains, however you want to measure that in the marketplace, will start to dramatically outpace Bitcoin on any measure that you would want to look at. So I think Ethereum is, a lot of the talk in 2020 has been Bitcoin, and rightfully so. It's the original asset. Ethereum is entering a phase now where the ability to build and use the technology, which is light years at this point above where Bitcoin's technology is accelerating, and so I'm a huge Ethereum fan for 2021.
Yeah, in
60 seconds less, right?
In 60 seconds, I think three things. The first and foremost, I think in the backdrop of world printing so much money in the next 12 to 18 months, Bitcoin is going to do, relatively well. Primarily, it's a great inflationary hedge. More institutions are going to come in. Along with more institutions coming in, more good regulation, good regulation will actually come in, and that's actually powerful for the ecosystem. We'll have more projects that are focused on usability and actual use cases. So we're going to effectively take that 90 million crypto users that we have to about 300, 400 million crypto users. Things like PayPal already exposed the diameter from 90 to 300, but not many people are using yet. And that's going to happen in 2021. 2021 is going to be super exciting. As one of the earlier panelists said, it's going to be like the 2000 for internet. So it's going to be fun. Looking forward to it.